Okay, this is tip number 9 and therefore incredibly powerful. It's the skill that I see done least well in schools. When I talk to teachers, they all believe that they do model, they think it's a skill of theirs, and I don't want to be patronising, but actually they haven't fully thought through, most teachers, how that model should be used with the students. So the first thing I'd say is that your model needs to aim really high. It needs to aim to get 100%. So let's imagine a GCSE class. Your model is going to be A star. And then you have to really explicitly think about what's in your model that makes it A star. It's no good writing something of 500 words that's brilliant when your students only have time to write 250 in the exam. So it has to match. Make it match what the students actually can do. There are some subjects, however, where the GCSE is limiting. I'd certainly say modern foreign languages is limiting. The GCSE doesn't require an awful lot of language. They don't have to use many tenses. I think it's 3, and they certainly don't have to use many examples of that tense. I would suggest that in your teaching you go beyond GCSE, especially if you want them to opt for A-level and succeed at A-level when they get there. So some subjects, like modern foreign languages, you want to teach them more than the GCSE. Other subjects, for example, if they're writing in PE, you don't. You want to teach them exactly what the exam requires and get 100% in the exam. There's no point teaching them to do better because it doesn't benefit them. Whereas, of course, a proficiency in a language will benefit them much more. And in your heart of hearts, you know that a GCSE isn't actually that useful as a measure of how good someone is in a language. So, next we get this problem. Typically, teachers, in my experience, you might be different, tend to give students the model after they've had a go and after they've already made loads of mistakes. And then we give them the model and say, oh, by the way, this is what you should have done. Well, I'm going to suggest that you reverse that. Give them a model that is 100% first. Teach from that. Explore why it's 100%. Then get them to redo that question with that exact model, so they've got to try and reproduce it. You'll find for many students that's very difficult, even though they've got the answer first. It's not cheating, because by the time they get into the exam, it's the 100% answer you want them to be able to give. And then as they become increasingly good, you change the context. So this is what we wrote about in history with the Battle of Hastings. Right, now let's see what made that 100%. Good. I'm going to give you a similar question, but this time it's going to be on the Battle of Agincourt, let's say. Apply the same principles, show me what you can do. So, give them the model first. Well, once you've done the model, you need to give students a mark scheme. And that has to be in language that the students understand. Most mark schemes I see delivered to students are exactly as you find them in the exam mark scheme. This is a wasted opportunity because even if you give a mark scheme to teachers, they'll often be puzzled about what particular bits mean, and actually you want to simplify it, so you just focus on the key differences between the grade boundaries, the key skills, and you must translate it into language that your students can understand. If you simply give them the mark scheme as it stands, it's not going to be good enough. Why? Well, because you need to see how that mark scheme can be used to get the 100%. How that mark scheme can be used with the model answer that you've done. And it's no good having a really explicit model answer if the mark scheme's too difficult to understand. That needs to be explicit also. And then finally, this bit here I hardly ever see teachers do. There are lots of rules that aren't in the mark scheme. However, they are in your understanding of what makes a good answer. And you will spot this for yourself. If you write an exam answer that you think should score 100%, then compare it to the mark scheme, you'll find there's lots of stuff you're doing that isn't in the mark scheme, but nevertheless you value. I could go through examples there, but I think that would be another video. But if you want to see how that works, visit some of my AQA videos or IGCSE. So I'm an English teacher with an English degree, and it is impossible for me to get 100% on an English GCSE without reading the mark scheme, because there are so many rules which are hidden. I'll put a link in this video so you can see that if you want. But this is incredibly powerful. It's the stuff that you know, that you do because you're an expert, but you're not explicit yet about telling the kids how to do it. That's going to move their performance massively.